I actually had a really hard time preparing for this because I feel like I'm still on my total leadership journey in a lot of ways. And I thought that the best way to sort of describe my key takeaway that you're always going to be on this journey if you buy into the principles of this course is to maybe give you a little bit of information about the last 7 years to show you how my perspective has changed as it relates to the principles I learned. When I took this course, I was exactly in your shoes, second semester, second year of my MBA, and actually my life was probably the least complex it had been in a long time. My husband had recently returned from Iraq. It was the first time in the 3 years at the time that we had been married that we were living together. And while I had a lot of things that I needed to figure out how to balance, at the time I was the happiest I had been. And so maybe for that reason, a lot of the principles went over my head, and maybe I didn't pay as much attention to some of the things that I learned. I graduated from Wharton. I went into what I call big consulting, big firm, lots of travel. And I frankly got a little bit complacent about thinking about the various aspects of my life and how I was gonna assign the value to the investment. And I spent a few years just only focused on work. And my spouse sort of fit in on the weekends where possible. And I found that over those 3 years, my life had devolved in a way that I hadn't expected. And I remember very vividly coming back to the principles of this course and looking back at my materials and re-engaging in those stakeholder dialogues and reopening those conversations. But the difference was I now had the language with which to have those conversations. Shortly after that, I had my first child, had to reevaluate my life again because it became a little bit more complex to have a crazy job where you travel and now you have a spouse that you have to manage and all your other responsibilities and a new person in your life. And I felt like for a period of time I got it right and I employed the principles appropriately. And then I sort of got complacent again. And I found that over the period of time in the last 7 years, I have had to recalibrate and remind myself of the principles multiple times, to the point where last fall I made a really big change and I moved jobs to sort of align my life and my job in a way that aligned my values. I think that today I employ the principles differently than I did 7 years ago. I have the stakeholder dialogues in a different way than I did 7 years ago. And so I see this course as sort of like a cup of tea, right? You put the tea bag in and the tea tastes pretty good, but as you let it steep a little bit longer and longer, the tea gets stronger and gets tastier. And I would encourage you, if I had one takeaway, is understand that your journey is just beginning. Hold on to your materials and go back to them whenever you feel like you need to recalibrate, because I don't think you're going to get it right between now and May and be done, right? You're going to have to keep going back to this, and you're going to have to keep adjusting as your life changes.